Welcome back to Where in the World, where we have real conversations with young professionals about life and career, all while attempting to guess where in the world they are. We'll learn something new about our guests and what it's like to forge your own career path as a young professional. And when we say young, we're really talking about a state of mind. You'll learn by watching this web series that your career will take many dips and turns over time. And just when you think you've made it, you might have to scrap it all and start from scratch. Sometimes that's the way it goes. We ride the tide. I'm your host, Clary Johnson, and I'm joined today by Marion McIntosh from Birmingham, Alabama. Marion is a manufacturing process senior engineer at American Honda Motors. Marion and I had the pleasure of meeting during a work trip when I also worked at Honda. We attended a Formula One race in Austin, Texas, which was so much fun. And during that time, we had an opportunity to connect and learn more about one another. I learned that in addition to being really, really great at his job, Marion gives back to the next generation by volunteering to speak and mentor young professionals. So it only made sense to invite him to the show. The big hairy question we're asking today is, what should young professionals do in moments when it feels like sink or swim? We've all been there. But before we jump in, let's do some housekeeping. This is a mini web series game show. The questions will range from standard interview like questions to more personal questions about our guests' careers. You'll notice we're both here today with different backgrounds. In between questions, we'll each have an opportunity to guess where in the world the other person is. The first person to guess correctly wins. Our guests can ask for clues along the way, and you can help as well by asking for clues. So please join me in welcoming Marion. Welcome to the stage, Marion.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate it. And thank you for the opportunity to be on this great platform. I have a little bit of experience with this, but it's been a while, so I may be a little rusty. So y'all
Yeah,
bear
I mean,
with me.
you've hosted your own podcast before with a team, and I've
Right,
had
right,
the
right.
opportunity to join that podcast. It was so much fun. So I'm happy to kind of get you back into the swing of things. I just want to say thank you for joining the show. You and I go way, way back, and over the years we've
Indeed.
hey, over the years we've kept in touch, and I'm so happy you're here. Today, we're going to be talking about sink or swim situations where it feels like there's no room for failure. Those can be moments of great anxiety if we don't have the right network or support systems to lean on. So, I'm looking forward to hearing your advice for young professionals who feel like they're in survival mode. But before we start, let's start with our most common interview questions. Tell us a
All
little bit
right.
about yourself and your background.
Oh, well, thank you. Again, thank you for having me. I'm glad to be here on this platform. Um, my name is Marion McIntosh, and I am a manufacturing process senior engineer. As you mentioned, I graduated from the University of Alabama, Roll Tide, and with an industrial engineering degree, bachelor's degree, and a master's as well. And so, um, when I first got to Honda, um, one thing that an industrial engineering professor, or excuse me, a visitor came back to talk to the industrial engineering students is one of the most pertinent lessons I ever learned in college. And it was just at a kind of a function that he came back to visit us and talk to us about. And he said, when you're a young engineer, when you go into these companies, he said, be humble. He said, you don't want to be a know it all college kid coming straight into these roles. And also, you may be in a dynamic in a manufacturing environment where you have people of a variety of backgrounds. One thing I tell people: the soft skills are extremely important in these type of environments. And so, go in and be humble. It starts to break down some of those barriers or preconceived notions that they might have about you. You know, you got this fancy degree, you think you know everything. And so instead, the humble approach is, yeah, I have a technical background, but you're out here on the floor. You're building the car. Help me understand the things that you do. That way I can contribute my technical expertise. You can give me your practical expertise and knowing what's really going on out here on the production floor. And we can get the best of both worlds because I'm learning from you first and foremost. And you may be able to learn a little bit of something from me. I remember one instance where I got on the assembly line and this guy says, I don't respect any process engineers. And I was wondering, well, what, bro, I've been here maybe a couple of weeks. I mean, I don't know the background, but when I had a conversation with him, he's he expressed the frustration with the engineers by saying, "Man, they just don't listen to anything we have to say. You know, they just want to come out here and do what they want to do, and we just have to take it." And so, from a softer side, from a soft skills approach, I've always tried to build consensus, particularly with the production floor. Because I tell anybody, you can be a brilliant engineer, but if the people on the assembly line or the shop floor or the lab or production or whatever entity you may work in, if those people aren't with you, you're going to fail. Your projects are going to fail. So you have to build a good rapport and build good relationships. It's important for people to trust you. You have to build trust. People, it helps if people like you. And so that's benefited me, and it took time to get good at it. You know, one thing I will reflect on my college experience. I was in the National Society of Black Engineers, and I wasn't just a member. I was a chapter president, a chapter treasurer. I was a regional executive board member. I was active in my fraternity, Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated. Uh, and also just I was in the gospel choir for a little while. Those organizations provide a very integral part of an education because you're learning how to deal with people. And that's the part that you don't necessarily get in the classroom all the time. I co-op with Southern Company, but in those student organizations, where you're learning how people's mood swings and people trying to go one direction or this and that, and you're trying to navigate, what the consensus is and building a team and what do we want to do and getting things done. Those skills that you're learning outside the classroom are just as critical and just as important as what you learn inside the classroom. I tell anybody, if you get a engineering degree from an ABET accredited institution, you're going to have the technical skills to be successful with whatever they throw at you. What's going to separate, success from failure oftentimes is how you're able to deal with people. And like I said, I think I'm pretty good at it now, but it took time to get there,
I'd
and
agree. I'd
learning
agree.
experience.
And I want to point out a few things that you said that really stuck out to me. So one, you were talking about when you're first getting started, and we're going to talk a little bit more about this later in the show. I have a question about this, but when you're just getting started in the workforce, really approaching that as a learning opportunity, right? So being
Yes.
humble, asking good questions, and I think a lot of times when we go to college and or get a higher education degree, we're kind of set up with this idea that we've got to know all the answers and we have to have all the right answers and we have to get the A, right? We've got to get
Right.
the A, we got to get the grade, and if we don't know it all, then we fail. Like that's kind of the mentality that we have coming out of school, because that's just kind of how we have what we've grown accustomed to. But that doesn't always work in the workplace. And one of the greatest skills that I've learned during my time, during my almost 8 years in corporate America, was that the most successful people that I worked with, or the people that seemed like they were doing really well, were people who could admit when they didn't know the right answer, or they would ask really great questions. And so you make some really great questions there. Now, with that being said, I did want to point out that you've got some fans in the chat. So Quentin is here. He's saying, "We
Hey, what's
here.
up, Quentin?
Let's get it, Mac."
Hey,
Thanks,
hey,
Quentin,
Quint,
for
that's
joining.
my guy, man. Hey, we came in with probably within a year of each other. I've watched him climb the ranks, and I'm very proud of him. Proud to know him. That's my brother from another mother. Uh, he did cross that other fraternity in blue, but we won't hold that against him. But
Well,
yeah,
well,
that's
let's
my
see.
guy.
Let's see if Quentin can help you in this next section of the conversation. So this is when I get a chance to guess where you are. I always take the honors of the first guess, and so I will continue to do that here. I'm gonna. It looks like so. Let me just describe where you are for listeners of the show. For the future podcast, I want to just kind of describe what I'm seeing. So we've
Okay.
got it looks like a hotel. I'm going to be honest, it looks like a hotel in the back, but it's they're buildings of various colors. So we've got some white buildings, we've got some like tannish buildings. Above the buildings there is kind of this it looks like it goes up, so it might be a small mountain or even a very high hill, but you see some green trees. It looks very beautiful, some really green trees at the top. And then above that is just blue sky. Like it's just there is no cloud in the sky. I can't see a drop of cloud in the sky. Now, when we go lower, there's some water here. There's some water.
Yes.
So we're
Yes.
absolutely off of a coast, but it's unclear of whether or not this is an ocean or a lake. Or even a river. So I'm going to guess that you're somewhere tropical. Are you in South America?
No.
Okay. So we're not in South America. Okay. I'll take it. Can you give me a clue about this place?
It's one of those places where um, if I ever make it into a huge sum of money, it's the type of place I would either like to own or spend a lot of time there throughout the year. Maybe 2 or 3 months at a time. It's that type of place I would like to be. Whether I owned it or rented it or whatever the case may be, that's it's the type of place I would love to. Wouldn't even call it a vacation. I want to go there and live among the people. I want to
Okay.
be like Denzel in Equalizer 3.
Okay.
you know, and
So it sounds like a timeshare to me, but I'm guessing I'm probably off base when I say that. Quentin is guessing that you are in Monroeville, Alabama.
ah, that's fun. That's my hometown. Yeah, that's my hometown. Shout out to Monroeville, Alabama. Born and raised on a playground is where I spent most of my
But that
days.
is not where you are.
Yes, that's not where I am
All right. Okay. Well, Marion, it is your turn to guess where I am.
though. Definitely underwater seems like it.
Would you like to
Um,
describe what you're saying for our listeners?
I'm seeing an underwater, probably former empire. I'm thinking Aztecs, maybe. So maybe you're off the coast of uh, Central America, Mexico, maybe. Um, Aztec empire that may have gotten covered up by the ocean. That's my
Is
guess.
that your guess?
Yeah.
So I am not off the coast of South America, and
Okay.
this is not an Aztec empire. However, I'll give you a clue about this place. So this is not a country you'd think of as scarcely populated. Um,
Mm.
However, around 70% of this country is made up of forests and mountains that aren't suitable for farming or living in. There are more than 100 active volcanoes.
Oh, okay, okay, okay.
Okay, awesome.
Good deal.
So let's move on to our next question. Can you describe a moment in your career where it felt like sink or swim and you had to survive? What was the situation? How did you respond and what was the outcome?
Well, the situation was we had a very, very challenging project, and there were things going on that I didn't necessarily have any control over, but I felt like I was being held responsible for them. And the challenge for me was communicating to everybody to be patient, that things may not look right now, but if you trust the process, if we continue to do the things that we have to do, we can't control the information that we're getting and that we're implementing. We're getting it, we're processing it, and we're issuing it as fast as we can. But the pressure is getting turned up. And sometimes I felt like you had people who didn't necessarily understand the complexities of what we had to deal with, being in a very complex area and dealing with a very complex part of the vehicle. And so, there was a lot of frustration involved. I felt like, there may have been some personal animosity with a few of my coworkers. But I trusted the process. I documented everything. And anytime anyone asked me a question, I always had the answer. I had it written down. It's important to not only tell the truth, but document. That's one thing I learned when I was a resident assistant and hall director at the University of Alabama. One of my directors said, Marion, whatever you do, when you're working with students, residents, fellow professionals, colleagues, document everything. And I can say, without going into too much detail, that documentation probably saved my career, because the documentation, ball don't lie, as we say. I'm keeping track of everything that I'm doing. So if someone says something that's not necessarily factually true, I've got documentation to back it up. Uh, they may or may not have documentation. They may just be shooting off the hip. Well, if you say something about me and you give me a date and time, I can go back in my documentation log and find that date and time and see whether you're telling the truth or not. And so when you get a reputation for documenting everything, people don't really try you that way, you know, because when the pressure gets turned up, sometimes, every now and then, somebody might not always tell the truth in a professional environment. They may want to cast blame, or they may want to scapegoat. And so documentation has really been my saving grace. And by kind of by default, I became the department historian, because people started asking me about things that happened 3 and 4 and 5 model cycles ago, because they knew I had all this documentation, and it's probably several hundred pages long.
And
um,
with that being said, one of the things that we actually both have in common, I didn't know you have this in common, is I was also a resident advisor as well, at the
oh,
University of
cool,
Illinois.
cool.
Yeah. Hey. Um, but my background is in broadcast journalism. I also have a master's degree in public relations. And so I'm used to taking notes. And so whenever I'm in meetings, I'm always taking notes. And whenever I am in a situation or interaction that is a business engagement, I'm taking notes. And the reason why is, yes, for documentation, but it's also helpful for you to document and see your growth throughout time, to see your
Yes,
progress.
absolutely.
Um, and without that kind of documentation, without writing things down or saving things, or even writing reflections about moments in your life when you felt a certain way or you've overcome a challenge, um, those moments and that documentation can really help you as you are looking to grow and move forward, because you can see that progress. And then when you sit down to have a conversation with your leader, with your manager, with the client, you can show them, hey, here's where we started. Here's all the progress that has happened in this amount of time. And you can advocate for yourself for more opportunities, for promotions, for bonuses, for raises. But without that documentation, it's going to be really difficult, because let's be honest, we're working for some people 8 hours a day, right?
Right,
And
right, right. Yeah.
so those days start to blend in together and we forget things. We forget the impact that we make. one of my favorite things to do is when I work with young professionals on their resumes is I take them way back in their history and say, "Tell me about the work that you did here." And without that documentation, they find it kind of hard to pull out those examples. But when we get there and they look back and they reflect on all they've done, it's a wow moment for them, that can really, really boost your confidence. So I love this recommendation about taking notes. With
Yep.
that being said, we've got a note taker in the comments. So Quentin thinks that I'm down here in Namir fighting Wakanda.
Oh, that's
However,
great.
Quentin, I am not fighting Wakanda right now. But I am underwater. But I want to guess where Marion is first.
Okay. Well, I
Um,
just I just wanted to add to that
okay, sure, of course.
before you guess my location. Um, with documentation, I always advise young professionals that I talk to and mentor at work. Is it helps during your performance review. I
Yes.
listen to young professionals all the time who they do all this outstanding work. And I literally had one of my coworkers tell me a couple of weeks ago about some great and wonderful stuff they were doing. Oh, I didn't put that in my performance review. And I'm like, what? I said, that is outstanding work. Put that stuff, even if it doesn't get the outcome that you necessarily wanted, that doesn't mean it was a failure. That means that the company may have decided at this time, we can't implement this, but the leg work has already been done. All of that is good activity and should be reported on in your performance review. And so, um, one thing when I first got one of my first promotions that I received, my department manager pulled me to the side and he asked for my history going all the way back to my previous department. And so I had to put together uh, uh, it was Excel documentation, PowerPoint documentation, essentially a presentation highlighting my career history and why I should be promoted. And I put that information together. It took me a couple of days, but I feel like I was able to pull it together a little bit more quickly because I document so relentlessly and got the promotion. So hey, it was successful. But go ahead with your guess.
No, thank you for sharing that because I think, yeah, like it's so important for us to give ourselves credit, and
Yes.
I don't think we do it enough. And so often we go through our work, we go through our lives, we have accomplishments, and we play them down as small because we don't feel like they're big enough. But we're really missing out on an opportunity to again advocate for ourselves, get opportunities, get promotions like you did,
Yes.
right? And so yes,
And what
documentation, very important.
and one thing that you mentioned that stuck out to me just now is just your personal history
Hmm.
because I can rarely go through a situation now that I can't reflect on something that I've been through already. Like I've been here 17, going on 18 years in June. And when something happens, it's so funny to remember when I was in my 20s or my 30s. Lord have mercy, don't let me age myself. It's like, oh man, I already been through this. I already know how to handle this. Whereas before I was learning, or I may not have handled it exactly the right way. I have to take some accountability. May have been young, may have been a little bit more of a hothead. Now I'm more laid back now, kind of chill. Something comes up, hey, we'll handle it. We're going to work on it. We're going to go home on time. We're going to come back and work on it some more in the morning. Whereas before, it may have been panic mode and everybody's scapegoating
Hmm.
everybody and guns blazing and you worried about having a target on your back. No, we just here to do let's do good work. Let's get this money. We don't have to be at each other's throats. Let's
Hmm.
work together. Let's find the best plan, the best path forward. People would rather work easy than work hard. There's nothing wrong with hard work in the correct sense or in the correct context. But let's work easy in the sense of let's do what's best and most efficient. Let's not waste time doing things that aren't productive. Let's sit down, let's have a conversation, let's develop a path forward, let's put our timelines in place, let's act like we know what we're doing, and let's do it. And you know that's really important to me. To just kind of reflect and kind of know versus trying to figure it out. And like I said, it comes with time.
Well, speaking of laid back, you look real laid back in your current environment.
Oh.
So we are not in South America. Um, I have to guess that you are somewhere in Africa.
I know.
We are not in Africa.
Not in Africa.
Can you give me another clue about this place?
Uh, our president recently mixed up the president's name of this country.
Oh, interesting. Oh man, I need to watch more politics. Okay, so that's actually really helpful. I'm going to
Okay.
sit on that a little bit. I'm going
Okay.
to sit on that a little bit. But before I do, I'm going to give you an opportunity as well to guess where I am.
I'm thinking Hawaii.
Oh, wouldn't that be nice? I am not in Hawaii.
Oh wow.
However, I
Yeah,
do
because
want to offer you. Oh, go ahead.
my mom wants to go there, and me and my brother and my sister have to fund it. So Hawaii has been heavy on my mind here lately.
Okay, so Hawaii is on your mind.
Yes.
Um, but maybe it would help to know that where I am is an underwater rock structure that was discovered in the mid 1980s by
Mm,
a tour diver. Yeah.
okay. Okay.
While some believe that the formation is from an ancient city, as
That was
you
my initial thought. Yes.
initially thought, others argue that it was naturally created.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. All right.
Good
So
deal.
before we head into our next question, I wanted to share this comment by Quentin. I think, this is so important. Self advocacy is super important, and we have to stop being overly humble in our careers. I think that's even more true for people of color. Um,
Absolutely.
because I think there's definitely I felt this. I can only speak from my own experience of being in the workplace and feeling like I had to work 10 times as hard as my peers for a fraction of the recognition. And so then feeling like my contributions weren't valuable.
And
Um
then on the
mhm.
flip side of that, you'll be working on things that are huge, but you're not necessarily thumping your chest and shouting it from the rooftops. And this very important and critical work is getting done, and you feel like people take it for granted almost. Whereas you'll have someone with a fraction of your skill set who is coming along, and they do one little thing and they shouting it from the rooftops, and they're presenting and they're telling everybody they can about it. And you start to see these folks making moves up the ladder, and you're just like, wait a minute, I need to do more of what they're doing. And so I agree with Quinn's comment. Definitely advocate for yourself, and definitely let people know what you're doing. It's We hate to say bragging, but that's really what your performance review is for. You need to brag on yourself, because that's money, that's promotions, that's opportunities, that's advancement, that's jobs. Man, if you're trying to move into management. And so definitely not in an arrogant or egotistical kind of way, but in a productive way, to where, hey, this is important work. This is what we're doing. This is what we did. This is the outcome. And this is how it overall benefits our company and benefits our organization.
Great points there. Well, and that actually leads us into our next question, which is what guidance can you give to young professionals who feel like they're in sink or swim mode with no room for error, who feel like survival mode, I've got to get this right, or if I don't get it right, everything is going to be a disaster and my career is going to be over. Like what can you give to young professionals
Mhm.
who are in that feeling state?
Well, in addition to what we talked about already, being humble, learning and asking questions, and also documentation. Find good mentors. Find people who want you to succeed. Ask for help. That is one of the most important things because a lot of people come to me in the company, not because I have the answer, but because they know I know people all over the place. I know people in different departments. I know people in other facilities. I used to brag on knowing you. I know somebody out in design and advertisement out in California, and having kind of an inside track or just knowing people in different parts of the company, but absolutely ask for help. There's no shame in asking for help. And then the failure is not necessarily on you, it's on your manager if they don't get you the support that you need to be successful. You know, Sink or swim, yeah, but throw me this life raft because there's a lot of life rafts around here. It's boats around here. It's people around here that can help me and be a resource. So it's important to be humble enough. Now, if you're one of those people, in college, you probably work with these folks who they always had their own homework. They didn't want to help anybody. They had all the answers.
Yep.
They didn't do well in projects or group projects because they felt like everybody else was beneath them. You know, there's always going to be a humbling moment in your professional career where you have to bite the bullet and ask for help. I know you flew through high school. I know you flew through college and you felt like you can do it all by yourself. But that's just not realistic. Um, in the production world, in the professional world, you have to ask for help and you have to know how to work together. And if you have beef with somebody, you got to learn how to put those personal differences aside for the good of the company. Because at the end of the day, we're here to get paid and do good work and go home to our families. I don't have time to be keeping up mess. And unfortunately, sometimes that creeps into the professional world and it can make um, the sink or swim even more challenging. Um, when on top of the technical work you may be doing, you may be dealing with egos and attitudes and things of that nature, which makes it overall more difficult to be successful. And so I would definitely say ask for help, find good mentors both inside the company and outside the company. It's good to have people who can give you an objective viewpoint, who don't necessarily know your intra company workings and things of that nature. But it's also good to know people who have traveled the road that you've traveled. Um, it helps to get a variety of backgrounds. I can appreciate I've had black mentors, I've had white mentors, and it may not have been a formal mentor. I've had male and female mentors, and it may not have been a formalized relationship, but whenever I've asked for help or come to them, they were always helpful. And a lot of people are thrilled that you just asked. They may have these preconceived notions. Oh, Marion thinks he knows everything. But when I come to you humbly and ask for your help and ask for your expertise, then those stereotypes tend to break down. Marion's actually cool. He don't think he know it all. He actually wants to learn something from me. And so that can buy you a lot of I guess, personal equity with some of your colleagues and your coworkers when you ask people for help, particularly if they don't have a formal technical degree and things of that nature. You know, for you to be humble enough to have this bachelor's and master's in engineering, and I'm just this guy on the production floor, but you're asking me for help. That builds a positive relationship with some of your coworkers. They're looking at you like you think you know everything, but you're demonstrating that no, actually I don't. I need to learn just like everybody else. Because you have things that I can benefit from as well.
And what you're describing are really positive leadership traits and qualities as well. So what I'm hearing when you're talking about being a person who might be in a senior level position or very accomplished in your work or in your role, and you're still able to approach someone else who might be on a growth path and approach them with questions and put yourself in the seat of a student, right? You're
Right.
giving that other person an opportunity to share what they know, and you're giving
Right.
them an opportunity um to educate and take on more of a leadership role, right? And you're not always giving the answer, but you're mentoring and you're helping someone else find the answers for themselves. And that's so important when we talk about working in teams, because let's be honest, it's not a singles game. Like, we have to
Right.
work together. And so the stronger all of our individual parts are, the stronger we are going to be when we're together. So the goal is to, of course, be on your own stuff, right? Like, be the best that you can be in your role, but also, as you're rising, bringing others along with you and also helping them to be the best at their roles, helping them to see what some of their blind what are behind some of their blinders, or where they may be making mistakes, or maybe they're overlooking certain opportunities, and pointing that out and helping them through that process. So that is such an important skill. The other thing that I would like to add as well is, in moments of sink or swim, don't panic.
Yes,
Because
absolutely.
when we panic, that leads to a lot of the things that you were talking about, which is throwing other people under the bus because you're scared that you're going to get in trouble, or that this is going to reflect badly on you. And so you don't take any accountability, right? Which ultimately backfires, because now you're seen as someone who's not really a team player. But
Right.
yeah, like, don't panic, because it by not panicking, one, you're able to get to solutions a lot faster. You're able to operate from a calm state of mind, and really explore what options there are. And you might find an opportunity that you hadn't really thought of before, simply because you were calm. Um,
Right.
and so that's the other thing that I would add is, I've gotten a lot of comments in my own career about how calm I am. But like, that really helps me to just stay grounded and see the full picture and be solutions oriented, and really develop a plan of action for how to solve whatever the challenge is that it might be in front of me.
Right. And fact based, data driven.
Hmm.
It's important not to be emotional, like you said, with the panicking and just shooting from the hip. Rely on the data, trust your technical skills to help you climb out of this sink or swim situation. Um, is very important to be as accurate as possible, to be as truthful as possible, to be as objective as possible. And as long as you're fact based, data driven, you're gonna make really good decisions. It's when you're just kind of shooting from the hip, that's when things can kind of go haywire. And so that's another piece of advice I would also give.
Well, speaking of facts and data, we know that you are not in South America.
That's correct.
You are also not in Africa, but you're also not in the United States, because in your last clue, you mentioned that our president butchered the name of the leader of this country.
It got
Which,
them slightly mixed up, but I cut him some slack because that's my guy. I don't want to get into the politics, but I know
okay,
he's a little older, but I give him a pass on this one.
so, I mean, I have a strategy that I use with this show, and it's called the seven continent strategy. I know there are seven continents, and I try to
Hmm.
eliminate them one by one before we get to the end of the show. Um, we're already through at least three of those continents, so there are four more. I am going to guess that you are in Europe.
That's correct. Yeah, that's
Okay,
correct. That is correct.
awesome. Okay, give me a clue about this place.
Well, people that know me know I love the water. I love all the water. Salt water, fresh water, brackish water. I love to be by the water. Water calms me. If I'm having a bad day, I go people know I like to fish. Even if I don't catch anything, I just like to be out there. So I love being by the water. I'm terrified of climate change kind of destroying all of my favorite places to go in so many years, but I love being I love being near the water.
Okay. So we did say that this place was near water. We now know that you're in
Mhm.
Europe, which helps me to triage this a little bit more. But with that being said, it is now your turn to guess where I am.
Hmm. So you said you're not in Central America.
I am not.
You're not in Hawaii.
I am not in Hawaii.
Um, but I'm thinking you're probably somewhere in the South Pacific, maybe.
South Pacific. I'm gonna go to Google Maps real quick.
Okay.
South Pacific. Can you give me maybe a country that is in South Pacific?
Oh, don't. Oh my gosh, don't embarrass me like this on TV. Are you near Australia by any chance?
Okay, okay, South Pacific. Okay. So I mean I want to say yes to South Pacific. Not so much South. No, not really South Pacific. Um
Okay.
I am not near Australia. However, you would be like depending on where you are in Australia, you'll be likely in the same time zone.
Oh, okay, okay,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
That's a good clue. That's a
Yeah.
good clue.
Hmm. Yeah. I'll give you another clue about this place. So, archaeologists believe that this place, where I'm at, is about 10,000 years old. At a time when
Oh,
the previous place was a part of a land bridge that connected to another place.
oh wow.
Hmm.
But you're south. Oh man, I'm so confused. I would have guessed the
Oh, I
Bering
did not
Strait.
say that I was south. I said I would be in the same time zone. But
Oh,
I we are
okay,
not near Australia,
okay. So you're not south. You're north.
north of Australia, correct?
Okay, okay.
Yes. All
Cool.
right. Well, before we go on, I want to say thank you to Quentin for contributing to this conversation. I think you're making some really great points here. Here's something else that Quentin says. Sometimes sink or swim situations just require patience to let crazy times pass. Situations aren't usually as bad as we make them. How true is that?
I
How
agree
often
110%.
yeah, like how often have we been in situations where we felt like it was going to be a disaster and then found out that
It wasn't even that deep.
it was all in our head. We was doing too much.
Right. That's right. That's right.
Yeah. Thank you, Quentin.
That's why
All
I'm
right.
so laid back now.
Me too.
It's gonna be all right.
It's going to work out.
No matter what.
And I mean, so before this interview, you did share a moment where you'd received below expectations on a performance review. I've been there too many
Mhm.
times.
Yeah.
um
It
it's almost embarrassing to talk about how I guess
really
I'm
is.
not really embarrassed, but I've been there. I've been there more than once. And it's tough, like
Mhm.
emotionally, psychologically. It can be very challenging, especially when you really care about the work that you're doing and you want to do a great job. But also, as we know, our job, so much of it is our livelihoods, right?
That's
And
correct. That's right.
if we're really um, dependent on that our place of work to provide our lifestyle, to pay just for our roof over our heads or the food on our table, and if we have families, man, like
Mhm.
um that that dependence grows even more. And so when you're on a performance review, it can be very scary. Can
Yes.
you talk about some of the emotions that can arise when you get that performance review or placed on a performance improvement plan? And
Ooh.
ooh, we get deep on this show. And also, any tips on how young professionals can navigate when they get poor performance reviews?
Well, first of all, don't get them, but don't get them. And it was tough for me because I hadn't had a below expectation from pre-K, from preschool through today one. Yeah, I may have dropped a class or two in college, but this was new territory for me, and I've had probably in my career out of 18 years, I probably had maybe five, six, seven, maybe exceeds expectations. So I want to throw that in there too. So
Yeah,
people know
give
I
yourself some
ain't no
props.
slouch. But I really did not agree. I didn't sign off on it. I kind of felt like you kind of feel like it's the end of your career almost. Cause you be like, if I feel like I did good work and I get judged incorrectly, where does this cycle end? If I feel like I really did a good job and y'all telling me I didn't, we got a disagreement. And so you have to check your emotions. Check your emotions. And that was hard for me because I was furious. When I tell you I was angry and I felt like it was personal. Um, I've been at this company close to 18 years. I've had maybe two-ish bad years. And that was the point where I got the below expectation. And like I said, I thought it was personal with some individuals. I didn't think it was necessarily anything I did wrong, but at the same time, I have to take some accountability as well and just say, well, these are some things that I could have done differently to help avoid this situation. Now, that's not to say it would have had a different outcome, but I have to at least reflect and say, okay, Marion, you know, you could have you know, done a little bit better yourself. Even though I struggle to figure out what I could have done differently, I still have to take some accountability. I got my emotions in check. You refer to the performance improvement plan, read what they have in writing, and do what you have to do to get off of it. I think it was a 3-month process, and I excelled throughout all 3 of those months. Well, why did I excel? Well, I kind of felt like I'm doing the same job that I've been doing the whole time, but I'm just documenting it on this PIP. But that's what you have to do. And even the people in human resources said, well, this typically doesn't happen when people get these bad performance reviews, they just leave the company. And and I'd be lying to you if I said that wasn't a consideration. But while I was going through it, I said, well, look, let me just excel. I know I'm capable of doing a great job. Do the job that you've been doing. And also don't allow yourself to be in that situation again. Because the first thing I said was, I'm not one to tuck tail and run. I'm more of someone who wants to fight and advocate for myself. But one thing I did say was, okay, I've had a disagreement with these individuals. I need to get out from under these individuals. Our relationship has kind of deteriorated. Like I said, my former manager, he's retired now. Worked with him several years, but during that particular time, I felt like these were irreconcilable differences. And so when you get a below expectations, you can't move, you can't transfer for at least a year until you come off of it and get back to meets expectations or above. And so once I did that, I requested a transfer. And quite clearly, the logic was I don't want to be in this situation again where I feel like my merit is being judged incorrectly by this particular individual. And so I requested a transfer. And the following year, after I got back up to meet expectations level, I got transferred out immediately. Now, you can read between the lines and say, well, maybe I wasn't wrong, with some of the things I was saying. I felt like some things were personal, but I just had to remember, um, do your job, do your job well, don't panic, um, and just rely on the tools and the skills that got you to this point. Because Nick Saban said something so profound recently, this season. He said, "You didn't come this far to get this far." You know, and like I said, things started once I transferred out. Things got a lot better for me. I transferred to another department where I felt like I had a much better rapport. Um, I won the contest and got the trip to Austin to report on the F1 races, and I got to meet Clary. And so things started to pick up, and then I got promoted not long after that. And so if I had just given up, or if I had just tucked tail and ran because of certain individuals, you know, it could have ended my career at this particular company. But I tell people, um, you have great companies. Sometimes those companies have some people who you may or may not be able to get along with for whatever reason. I'll spare you the details. Uh, and that's okay. But it doesn't mean I'm not working for a great company. It just means that it was time for us to part ways with these particular individuals. People don't leave bad companies necessarily. They leave bad managers sometimes. And like I said, my manager at the time, he was great, except for those few years we had that disagreement. I don't have any kind of ill will or animosity towards him. We just had to part ways. And he did fine after I left, and and I'm doing okay as well. And so it those are some of the difficult challenges that you can go through in these companies. But I always tell people, if you're having an issue at your job, I want you to ask yourself, as a young professional or old professional, do you work at a good company? Do you just have a some people that you're having issues with? Because I would hate for you to leave a great company like Honda because you have a discrepancy with individuals, and vice versa. You may work at a bad company, and sometimes their culture may not necessarily be um what it should be. I've heard instances where people have um applied for promotions at certain companies. I'm not talking about the one I work for necessarily, but they've applied for promotions, didn't get the promotion, somebody else got it, and then they had to train the individual and show them how to do the job that that individual got promoted for. And they're looking at the standpoint of, well, wait a minute, why didn't I get promoted if I'm having to train the person you promoted over me? And so I know people in different companies who left the company after that because that was unacceptable behavior. And I totally get it. I totally understand it. Because you look at it, was it nepotism? Was it racism? Was it favoritism? Was it some sort of system or systematic discrimination? I mean, when things happen that are unacceptable, I definitely can't blame anyone for changing their environment and changing their jobs. But at the same time, if you work for a good company and you're having issues with individuals, if a company is large enough to where you can get in a different department or a different group or a different environment, internal mobility is a great thing to where you can do something different. Internal mobility is good even if you're leaving a good situation, because you may just want to expand your horizons and get some different experiences in different departments and doing different types of jobs and different work. And so that qualifies you in the future to move up because you have these experiences in these different parts of the company. And so uh,
Yeah.
that's what I would say. Just continue to work hard, continue to do what you feel is best, and
Yeah.
keep being
So
successful.
one of the things that you said that I just kind of want to add a point here is check your relationships.
Yes.
Every time that I've been on any kind of performance improvement plan or performance review, there was a sour relationship in the mix.
Yes.
And it I realized that it wasn't necessarily even about my work at that point of how well I was performing or how well the work is what I was doing. It was the perception of my work that was the issue. And the reason why that perception was sour was because that relationship wasn't going well.
Right.
And
Right.
so if I were to go back and redo some of the performance plans that I was on, I'd say I would really work on healing the relationship and really working with the person and letting them know that, listen, like I want to be here and I want to have a good relationship with you. How can we co-create that together? I think a lot of times when you're on a performance plan and you showing up and you're saying, hey, but my work is really, really good, this is unfair, and you lead with that energy of unfairness, then
Yes.
you can't see the opportunity of healing that relationship and actually and kind of what you said, at the beginning I was looking at everybody else and saying, well, it's your fault, but I wasn't actually looking and saying, well, how can I actually perform? Maybe there's something here for me to learn from. And it's hard and you miss that learning opportunity because you're so deep in that emotion of
Right.
anger or frustration. And so it can really help to step back from that situation and see it with a more clear perspective. Um, so check your relationships and be willing. Be willing to not be perfect and be willing
Yes.
to be the person who has made mistakes or isn't performing, right? Be willing to be that. you know and I can't say, and you were mentioning too, you were mentioning nepotism, you were mentioning racism, you were mentioning favoritism, I've seen ageism. All of those are valid. It doesn't
Right. Right.
mean
Right.
that that's not valid, that your concern about that isn't valid, because it's very possible that you are experiencing racism. um However, or any of the isms, but however, if if this is a good company, as you mentioned, and this is a place that you want to work and a place where you can be, find a way and be willing to be the person that needs improvement. And also, I love what you said about once you've met that bar, request a transfer. like
Right.
advocate for yourself to be in a new environment, because that might be exactly what you need. And the last point I'll add is, don't send that email. Don't send the email.
That's right.
Don't send don't send
That's
that
right.
4 paragraph email that you typed up saying that you don't like this performance review and how unfair it is. Don't
You
send it.
had to pick your battles. Absolutely.
Don't send it. Those kinds of conversations are much better had in person. If there is something that has come up and you feel, you have very strong a strong reaction to it, one step back, give yourself time to calm down. Don't send the email. All you have to do is simply say, hey, is there a time that I can put in your calendar? I would love to learn more about this and have a conversation, and really understand the feedback that I'm receiving.
And one thing I want to share too is don't react negatively, because you hear people all the time say they want to go off. They want to cuss somebody out, or they want to fly off the handle or fly off the deep end. Well, guess what? Now you've thrown your whole career away, because now they're going to terminate you. So there have been times in my career where I felt like, people can poke and prod you without necessarily saying anything that's illegal in the handbook, so to speak. Certain microaggressions, smart comments, um, slick comments to get under your skin. I have seen it live where I knew these people didn't like each other. And I knew this individual was probably wanting this other person to get fired. And the other person took the bait. And I was like, no, don't take the bait. Don't take the bait. You have to psychologically know what's going on. Like, oh, I've heard people, and not even people that were superior. These could have been people who were subordinates or same level, but they may just not like you. And they say some things that you really just said that with a straight face. And in the outside world, there may have been some instant accountability if you said that. But the old adage is people like to talk junk in a safe place. But you have to be smart enough to be and intelligent enough not to go off, not to react negatively, not to use words that the handbook tells you not to use, because those things can cause you to end up in human resources trying to explain why you said what you said or did what you did.
Ain't that
And
the truth?
so when you can recognize, and I recognize when it hadn't happened in several years. Let me preface it by saying that. But there have been times in my career where I said, "Oh yeah, you really trying it right now. You trying to really get me to go off, but I already know what you up to, and I'm just gonna say okay, and I'm gonna go the other way." And it takes checking your pride too, because your pride wants you to respond. Your pride wants you to put them in their whole place. But sometimes you have to bite your tongue and walk away, because the victory is success. They tried you, you didn't take the bait, and you still working there. In many instances, when those people who were trying to do the provoking, they not there anymore. And sometimes, when people, um for whatever reason, may or may not like you, I believe in being cordial to people. We don't have to be the best of friends at work. If I make a few friends at work, cool. Quentin is probably one of my best friends, whether I, you know don't work with him another day. That's my guy. So it's good to have friends at work. But at the same time, if we don't necessarily have a good rapport, let's at least be respectful, and let's at least be professionals, and let's do good work, and let's get this money. And we don't have to speak or be friends all the time. But like Sister Lauren Hill said, respect is just a minimum. So we come here to make money and not necessarily make friends. So don't take the bait, young folks. And I know it, you know, I don't know what generation we on in terms of the folks coming out of college now, whether it's X or Y, whatever. I don't know what it is now, but it's a lot of folks that feel like I'm not letting anything slide. Pick your battles and don't take the bait. Because otherwise, you're just gonna be changing jobs in perpetuity. Every time somebody make you mad, if you tuck tail and run, every 3 to 6 months, you're in a different job because I'm not taking that, or I'm not gonna let anybody talk to me crazy. Listen, I get it, but sometimes you have to you have to know what's going on, and not fall for it. You know.
Well, I feel like I'm falling for where you are right now because I have no idea. By the way, our friend Quentin in the chat is saying that do you have a preferred nickname that you go by?
Who,
It's
me?
no Quentin. Quentin is saying every time we say his government name, it's killing him.
Oh.
Is it Q? Help us out here. All right, so I'm gonna
Oh,
guess.
Big Q, my bad.
Oh,
I said
is it
it's
Q?
big Q, yeah.
Oh, it is. Okay.
My bad. I've been trying to be professional. You know, everybody watching this. So.
All right, so we're in Europe. I'm looking. We are off of a coast, so there are several bodies of water that are bordering Europe. I'm seeing at least five. So I'm gonna guess that you are in a country that is bordering the Mediterranean Sea.
Yeah, I'm supposed to know that, aren't I?
You can always look it up on
I
Google
can look it
Maps as
up.
well. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah,
I'm about to look it up now.
yeah,
I love this place. I haven't actually been there. That's the irony of it. It's kind of on my bucket list.
yeah. It looks like a very culture. It looks like a place that you can go and get find some really good food. I'll say that.
I would think so. I do not see it bordering the Mediterranean.
Okay, so we are not in Southern Europe.
Well, let me look up the Mediterranean Sea. Let me just make sure. uh, I'm about to use my laptop. And are and
Ooh,
I think are you nope. Nope, not bordering the Mediterranean Sea. Very close though. Very close.
very close.
Very close. But not
Oh,
bordering the Mediterranean Sea. There is some sea between this place. I
oh.
could give you a really good clue, but I was like,
Can
no,
you
I'm
give
not gonna
me a
do that.
okay?
There's a famous tower.
There's a famous tower here. Oh, I kind of know where you are.
It's a famous tower in this country.
I know exactly where you are.
That was too
Okay.
easy.
That was too easy. Okay, but I'm not gonna guess. I'm gonna save my guess for the next one.
Okay.
Um, okay, it's your turn to guess. But before you do, Q, our friend Big Q, is offering some guesses for you. So Q guesses that I'm in the Philippines. I am not in the Philippines.
Ah.
I'm
I
not
was
in the Philippines.
I was gonna say the Bering Strait.
We are not in the Bering Strait.
Okay.
But let me see how close the Bering Strait is to this place.
Okay.
The Bering Strait. Well, that's too far north. So remember when I said that if you were in Australia, you might be in the same time zone depending
Mm-hmm.
on where in Australia you are. So that's pretty far off.
Ah, okay. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. So we are north of Australia,
North of Australia.
not in the Philippines. However, Q has given you a great clue. Um, we are
Uh-oh.
close. Q is closer to this place than Australia. Much closer, I might add. Much
Really?
closer. Yes. All right. So, all right. So let's move on to our next question. But before we do, I
All
want to
right.
share this contribution by Q. So, culturally, we think we have to get things off our chest. Other cultures are experts at separating personal and professional feelings in relationships. I couldn't agree more with that. I couldn't agree more with that. The way that I used to say is I'm very direct and and to the point, and I put things out on the table. And what I found is that that's not always the best strategy in the workplace. So thank you for sharing. All
Right.
right. So, Marion.
Right. I just want to add to that. It's
Okay.
good to have a personal, almost board of directors. Like if I had to name them, Q would definitely be one of them. But people you can talk to with no judgment and no filter outside of work, where you can get some of these things off your chest. Vent, cuss and fuss in private with your homeboys or your friends or your personal board of directors. And then so you can come back into this job and have a level head on your shoulders because you're able to get it out. I hate to see people try to get it out at work because then it could cost you your job when you just had a moment of anger where you lost control. And you have to always be in control. And so rely on your personal board of directors, people you trust, mentors, mentees, colleagues, family members, friends. It's good to have a strong professional circle where you can talk to about some of these things. And like I said, it's not for everybody. Like your homeboys that you just want to kick it with and chop it up with, they may not necessarily be the ones to talk to about professional um environments and things that you're going through. But it has to be, a professional board of directors or people that are in similar careers, have gone through similar experiences. It can be different industries, it can be different entities. I talk to my cousins who are ex-military, and when I tell them about a lot of my issues, they actually have similar issues that they went through, even in the military. So it's applicable, some of the experiences that we're going through across different types of careers, but it's important to have those people in your circle that you can talk to, and that has been invaluable throughout my career, especially during the sink or swim times.
Yeah, and I think that's a great way to put it, a personal board of directors, because it gives you an idea of really sitting down and thinking about, if I were to create my own board of
Oh, and
directors.
shout out to Hill Harper. That's where I stole that from. So let me give my frat brother Hill Harper credit for that one. Go ahead.
Shout out to Hill. Shout out to Hill. But if I were to sit down and really think about um, creating a network around me or a community, um, who would those people be and what roles would each of them play in that growth process? And so I really like that line of thinking. And I think it's really helpful for the conversation. I would like to ask. Oh, so Q has also added that read the 48 Laws of Power and it'll teach a lot about the corporate game. So Q,
Absolutely.
actually, what's interesting is I've been reading this as a PDF, and I find some of the I guess the guidance in the 48 Laws of Power to be quite interesting.
Kind of
Um,
cutthroat too.
Kind of, yeah. Interesting is a nice way. Cutthroat is the better way. Um, yeah, but it's an interesting. It's an interesting read. And actually quite entertaining. So I highly recommend reading it. But after reading it, you do start to see that show up in certain work situations where you're like, oh, I see how this law of power is being leveraged, whether people realize it or not. So, Marion, can you offer us any tips for how young professionals joining the workforce or making a pivot can prepare for a new role?
Well, before I get into that, I want to just share something really quick. In addition to 48 Laws of Power, a book that I've just came on my radar talking to one of my ex-military cousins a couple of weeks ago. Um, Extreme ownership and the concept of extreme ownership. I think that's it's a great concept that where you hold yourself accountable for whatever happens, no matter whose fault it is. And so basically, if you're building an organization, say for instance, if you're in a manufacturing or assembly line environment and something happens, the person on the process building the car, they say, hey, this is my fault. I didn't do this, that, and the other. And then their manager says, oh no, it's not your fault. I should have trained you better. It's my fault. And then that person's manager says, well, no, it's not your fault. I should have given you better resources. So it's my fault. And then me as the process engineer, I said, hey, no, I should have designed a better process. So no, it's my fault. And then my manager comes back and says, no, it's not your fault. I should have given you more resources to do more to improve the assembly line. So it's my fault. And then the department manager says, no, it's not your fault. I should have given you more budget and more resources so that you all could have a better situation. So no, it's my fault. So when you create an organization of extreme ownership and everybody at every tier is taking ownership of the problem instead of the contrast where we typically have people scapegoating or pointing the finger or saying it's somebody else's fault. Think of how much greater your organization is going to operate uh, when everyone is taking accountability. We're fighting over accountability instead of fighting placing blame. And so my cousin was telling me about that, and I was like, man, that is awesome. I'm gonna take that back to work and I'm gonna talk about that and I'm gonna implement that because that's something that I feel like is would be extremely beneficial, the concept of extreme ownership. And that's a book that I plan to read. I haven't read it yet. I watched a little TED talk on YouTube. It's about 12 or 13 minutes. As a combat veteran, a Navy SEAL, that actually wrote it. And so, extreme ownership, I highly recommend it. They didn't pay me to say that. My cousin swears by it, and it's definitely something. Like I said, it just got on my radar when I went to visit him and his family last week in Norfolk, Virginia, military town. And so, I'm excited about that concept of extreme ownership. And please repeat your question because I done got off on this tangent and I done forgot what I
Well,
forgot what you.
thank you for sharing. We are here near the end of the show, but I have a couple more questions. The question that we did have is, can you share any tips for how young professionals joining the workforce or making a pivot can prepare for a new role?
Yes. Well, I think we kind of touched on it quite a bit. Just um, be humble, rely on your skills, always have a spirit of learning. I've been here going on. I've been in my job, my current role, about 18 years. I'm still learning, and the companies change. The way we did things in 2006 aren't the same way we're doing them in 2024. And so you got this AI that's coming out that we have to learn and do something with. We got all these different tools. Our software capabilities are improving. Our manufacturing capabilities are improving. You can't build cars with the same technology today as you did yesterday. And so, as engineers, we always have to adapt. We always have to improve, and we always have to continue to learn. And so, having that spirit, I think, is a little bit easier for people coming right out of college because you're used to learning new things because you just got your degree, and so you just kind of continue that. It's a little bit harder when you've been working a while and you kind of stuck in your ways, and oh, I don't really want to learn this AI stuff. I don't really want to do anything new. But a part of your advancement and a part of your success is going to be how well you can adapt and how well you learn new technology and new methodologies and new methods um, of working. And so always be willing to learn. Don't ever lose that. Um, because it's easy to kind of get in a groove where, hey, I'm used to doing it this way. Whenever we want to change something on the assembly line, one of the first things people tell me, man, we've been doing it this way forever. I was like, well, that might be the problem. You may have to do something new. You always have to have a spirit of continuous improvement. Um, and you pass that value on to the customers. And so that's one thing. Always be willing to learn, always be learning, and not just in your profession. Learn things outside of your profession. Learn new skills, take up new hobbies. These things are going to keep your mind fresh and keep you engaged. Know what's going on in the world, know what's going on in industry. I'm always reading about the automotive industry. you know I want to know what's going on at competitors and other companies. I want to know about all the recalls. I want to know about electric vehicles. That's really big now. that has the capacity to transform the entire automotive industry. Learning about new battery technologies, who's ahead and who's behind. You know, always know what's going on in your respective field and your respective industry outside of the walls of your particular company, because that's going to help you excel. Because people want it, when you're just having casual conversations and you bring out, oh well, yeah, Mercedes is putting in this in their assembly line, and I think we could probably benefit from that, or GM is doing this and that. People really value and take notice of the fact that you're not just paying attention to what we're doing, you're also paying attention to what's going on industry wide. And that, you know, adds value, creates value for yourself and for your company.
And what I hear you saying is you become a resource
Right.
because you are constantly learning, you're constantly bringing in fresh ideas and new information. And so people know that they can now lean on you for those new perspectives, for those fresh perspectives as they're looking at innovating and creating something new. This is great. So, with that being said, I'm going to guess, well, before I guess, I'm going to use my lifeline.
Uh-oh.
So, Q has guessed that you're either in Greece or Italy.
Ooh, very close. Very close, but no.
I'm going to guess that you are in fact in Paris, in France.
I am in France. Yeah. The south of France specifically.
Okay, so you are in the
South of
south
France.
of France. Tell us why. You kind of already described it, why you chose this place, but tell us more about this place. And so you are in Marseille
I didn't
or
necessarily
Monaco.
pick
Oh,
a
okay, okay,
city. I'm somewhere in
okay,
that vicinity.
okay.
Just south of France, but it's it's always somewhere I've always wanted to go. you know, I want to go there. I want to go on the beaches. I want to fish. I want to get to know the people, the culture. I want to dance all night. I want to eat good food. Um, so that's kind of on my bucket list. Uh, the south of France. It's I've always been fascinated with that location. And like I said, if I ever come into a lump sum of money, I want to have a place there, or at least rent there for some months out of the year and just be there. I feel like it'll be a good time. So that's on my bucket list.
Excellent. Well, I trust, and I'm guessing you've never visited France before.
No, have not
Okay.
have not been to Europe yet.
Okay. Yeah. Well, I mean, now we've spoken it into existence, so let it may it come. And sometimes we think that we need a lot of money to travel, and we find that it's a lot easier than we think. So you might get there sooner than what you think. But it sounds
Right.
like you actually want to live there for several months.
Yeah, and the irony is, I love everybody knows I love New Orleans, and I feel like that's
Yes.
just a little piece of
Mm,
France and America. So,
that makes a lot of sense. Makes a lot of sense.
yeah.
Well, thank you for sharing that with us, Marion. And it's your turn to guess where I am.
Ooh, uh, I am going to say Tunisia.
We are not in Tunisia. I'm going to give you another clue.
I don't.
I am going to give you another clue.
I am terrible at this game. I'm sorry.
I'm going to give you another clue. This one should be easy. You work at a place with origins from this place.
Oh wow, you in Japan?
Yeah.
Japan?
Yes, we are.
Wow.
Uh, but you get points if you can guess where in Japan I am. And by the way, you can use Google. Okay. Um,
Osaka.
we are not in Osaka. No. Okay. So,
Kagashimi.
actually, Q has guessed Taiwan, and actually, where we are, um, is near Taiwan, but it is not quite Taiwan.
Oh.
So remember, we are in the middle of the sea.
Okinawa.
Is it Okinawa? Hold on, let me see. Can you tell me the name of the monument?
Oh, no.
We are in Okinawa, by the way. And before you answer that, I am
Oh,
going to
wow.
ask the final question.
Okay.
All right, final question. This is a question that we ask all of our guests who come on the show. How would you describe success?
Ooh, the first word that comes to mind, and I hope this doesn't sound cliche, the word peace. The word peace comes to mind. I not necessarily satisfied because I want to continue to grow. I want to continue to, get promotions and things of that nature. But more importantly, I value my peace. And so success for me is if I can get off work on time, if I can get off work at 3 and be on the lake or the track at the park by 4:30, I am at peace. Or if I can be at happy hour by 5, I'm at peace. My bills are paid, you know, um, I can do most of what I want to do. I can travel, I have adequate time off. I don't want to be just a cog in the wheel 10, 12 hours a day, 50 and 60 hours a week, making a ton of money. That's just not my lane, you know. But making decent money, but being at peace, not stressed out all the time, not constantly worried about work and not constantly, you know, worried about what's going on up there at that plant. I want to be able to cut it off and I want to be on a miniature vacation every day. When I clock out, I want to be at peace. And to me, whatever you do, whether I decide to run for Congress or, start a business or ride off into the sunset in my current position, the common denominator is I want to be at peace. And if it is costing me my peace, it ain't worth it. I'm sorry, it is not worth it, but it is not worth it. And so to me, that's the definition of success. To me, I know a lot of people they make a ton of money, but they spending a ton of money, and they have a whole lot of pressure to keep up this facade of I got it when you could really be balling out on by doing a little bit less. So and it's kind of easy for me to say, right? Being single with no kids, people say, "Oh yeah, you can go to the lake. You don't have daycare." And yeah, I get that aspect of it. Don't get me wrong, and I don't, I value family, and I hope to have one of my own someday. But I still want to be able to have as much peace as possible. I know peace is kind of hard when you got toddlers and or teenagers or whatever running around. Um, but still find a way, even if I have a family one day, to have that peace that we're not always stressed out and worried all the time. And uh the COVID pandemic, I think in a kind of a ironic kind of way, kind of helped reset and recalibrate, for me and maybe for a lot of other people, what's really important. Is making a ton of money, working a ton of hours, is that important? Or is it more important to have time? Because I can go get more money. I ain't worried about that. But time is limited. And we only have a certain amount. And we better make the most of it. You hear about people all the time. They worked all these hours, they built up all this 401k and all that. And then 2 years after retirement, they gone because they didn't take care of their health, didn't take care of their bodies, didn't take care of their minds. And so for me, it's always kind of been there, but it intensified, after COVID, during COVID, and now it's peace. And peace is, and if it disturbs my peace, I'm not one of these people who want to post a lot of social media quotes about all all this protecting my peace and all that. That's not what I'm saying. but but just valuing um peace and having a stress-free life. That's very valuable, very important to me. I don't have to wait to go to Jamaica or Okinawa or the south of France. I can go right down here 15 minutes to Lake Purdy and be at peace and be at a miniature vacation. And I can do that tomorrow. I don't have to wait. I love vacation. I love traveling, but I can go to Papados after I leave here and be at peace.
Not
you know,
Papa knows.
I keep it simple. And so that's very important to me. And that's the definite that's success. That's success for me. I don't drive the fanciest car. I don't live in a huge house or a mansion or anything like that. But if Bama makes it to the national championship, I'm gonna be there because that's peace for me. You know?
Well, thank you for sharing. So, success is peace of mind.
Yes.
You heard it here, folks. Quentin Q, I'm sorry, Q also wanted to contribute to this question, saying success is loving the person that I am and only having really healthy relationships around me. Thank you so much for that contribution,
Amen.
Q.
Amen.
It's so relevant to the conversation that we had today. Um, Before we go, Marion, tell us about what you've got coming up, and tell our listeners how they can learn more about you.
Ooh, yeah, you got me with that one. Well, trying to get more involved in the community. Don't have anything necessarily concrete planned as of yet, but I am in some tentative discussions about helping to mentor some black males and just getting in front of them so they can see what a black engineer looks like. Um, the last conversation I had was with an elementary school teacher, where I'm potentially going to go talk to her kids in Birmingham, and so that's something that I kind of have coming up on my radar, and just more service in general, just kind of looking out for the next generation. We have a responsibility to prepare the next generation for this crazy world coming up, because we're gonna leave here. We're becoming the old heads now. People, we joke in my family that, we the ones that have to plan the reunion now, not aunts and uncles and parents and all this kind of stuff. So we're becoming the OGs, the uncles and
Yeah,
aunties
sure.
now.
Yep.
And so been really focused on preparing the next generation and get whatever I can pass on, and stuff that I don't, put up a billboard about, but just helping your family members, your cousins, your younger nieces and nephews, that kind of thing. Just passing on something good to the next generation. It makes my heart melt when one of my little cousins in high school or getting ready to go to college say, I want to go talk to cousin uh CT, that's my family nickname. I want to talk to cousin CT about engineering.
Mhm.
One of my cousins, he graduates this year and he wants to major in engineering and he wants to go to the University of
Oh, that's
Alabama.
awesome. Yeah.
And so I'm just thrilled that he wants to talk to me for whatever reason. I am on the College of Engineering Capstone Engineering Society board of directors. So my first year in that, so I'm loving that role, and just the people who have reached out to me, once they found out I was in that role, and just them feeling like, hey, I got an insider. If my son or daughter wants to go to UA and major in engineering, I know somebody. I know Marion. you know, that kind of stuff excites me. I'm thrilled when people reach out to me. It's not it's show at this point in my life. It's not about a resume. It's not about accolades or anything like that for me. It's I get excited when people ask me about something that they think I can maybe help them with. And even if I can't help them, I know who to put them in contact with. One of my friends reached out to me, wanted to finish his degree at UA. And I actually knew somebody that was in uh, the program that he needed to get linked up with, and that kind of stuff. It excites me. I just it makes me happy. Um, so just help people. Let's help each other. Let's expand our circles of influence, and let's do what we can to prepare the next generation. I don't have any toddlers running around, not yet. Hopefully, maybe one day, I don't know. But if it don't happen, there's still many people I can influence and have a positive impact on. And that's kind of, if you want to say something I got coming up. I know that's not a any big event or
No,
flyer or
that's
anything like
excellent.
that, but
That's excellent. And with that being said, I also just don't want to leave you hanging either. I do want to tell you where specifically I am. So I
okay.
am in Okinawa, Japan. I'm at the Yonaguni Monument, and I'll tell you a little
Ah,
bit more about this place. Oh, are you familiar with this place?
no, I just wanted to sound, like I
Oh,
was
okay.
familiar with it. Yeah.
um, So it's also called the Yonaguni Pyramid. So you weren't quite off when you said that it looked like a pyramid from an
Okay.
ancient civilization. It's an underwater rock formation located off the coast of Japanese island. It's 20 meters tall, and the monument has been subject of intense debate and speculation since it was first discovered. Some people believe that the pyramid in the ocean is evidence of ancient civilization that was lost in time, and other geologists have contested this claim, arguing that while the appearance of the monument is unusual, it could have easily been created through natural means. It was first discovered in 1986 by a scuba diver named Kiachiro Aratake, as he was traveling outside of a designated diving area looking for hammerhead sharks. So,
Wow.
this photo is actually a still from a video on BBC, and it was taken by Naotomo Umewaka. So, uh,
Okay.
yeah, so I thought this was a really cool place and definitely wanted to share it. With that, folks, we are out.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Thanks so much, Marion, for coming on the show, and we will catch up very soon.
Awesome.
Take care.